All right. Hi. This is Anthony Bonaspina, CEO of Ally Tech Advisors. Today, we're going to be talking about strengthening cybersecurity through employee training and awareness. And we have our guest speaker here, Natalie. She's basically the principal solution advisor at ConnectWise, and she's going to be giving us her advice as far as why this is important and what we can do to basically help foster a culture of security awareness within our organization, which is so important. There's a little bit about me. You don't have to read it. It's a lengthy thing. I've been around. I'm as old as dirt. So that's me. And here's Natalie's background. I'm going to let her talk a little bit about herself. Yeah, Natalie.
Yes. Old as dirt as well. 25 plus years of experience, heavy emphasis on the plus. Really, the only important thing here is I am technical. I started my career as a software developer, and now I am just really, passionate about threat intelligence and my family and Lego.
Okay, this sounds great. My son is heavily into Lego and definitely have the same priorities. And I did start in software development as well.
Awesome.
All right, let's dive right in. If you could tell us a little about, what this is all about, why it's so important to have trained employees in your organization.
Well, the reason it's important is because things have really changed. The reason I love being in cyber is because I'm always learning something new. The landscape has changed. Back in the good old days when you and I started, Anthony, the bad guy was sitting in a basement, right, wearing the little black hoodie, right, pounding away on a keyboard. And that's just not the case anymore. I mean, we have these ransomware gangs, and they are gangs, are whole criminal enterprises that are quickly evolving their methodologies, their tactics, their techniques, and we need to stay ahead of them, and we need to know what they're doing. And that's why people are like, oh, am I doing another security awareness training? Well, things have changed. Remote work, that's a perfect example of how things have changed, right? We've all expanded our attack surface because, in our office, we have the latest and greatest firewall. It's all patched, right? At home, what are we doing? Do you know what each one of your remote workers is doing with their devices? Well, guess what? You can if you're deploying some new technologies, right? Like endpoint detection and response. But it's really important to make them aware of things like, I think we'll go into it in the next slide, but like AI, right? It's made phishing so much easier to do, right? Phishing emails. We've got deep fakes, we got deep audio. We have to educate them and train them on the new attacks,
Hmm.
right? You were just telling me a story earlier about your little fun attack where someone impersonated you in your voice and shared
Hmm.
it with you. You had a meeting with yourself, right?
So,
um,
yeah,
you
pretty
know,
scary.
and I don't know about you, but me too, with AI and training, it's really important to not say, drop the hammer and go, yay, verily, no one's going to use AI. Because unless you're going to take away their personal cell phones, you're not never going to take away their ability to use AI. Part of the training should also include responsible use of AI. Like, when is it appropriate to use something like ChatGPT or Google Bard or whatever? When is it appropriate? What kind of information should I share? Like, you don't want, I don't know about you, but when someone tells me I can't do something, it just makes me want to do it even more.
Hmm.
And, they have to be aware of these threats and aware of how to responsibly use it. Don't put in corporate information. Don't put in private information of your own. Samsung was in the news. What I guess it's been about a year now that they lost some intellectual property because they were allowing their engineers unfettered access to AI. And they were asking questions because they were told they could ask questions, but they didn't have any guardrails. What kind of questions should I ask? What kind of information could I provide? There's that. Tom Hanks was a victim of a deep fake. I don't know if you saw that news. There was a dental company that was using his likeness to promote their product. I think it might have been, I don't know if it was dental or dental insurance, but he had to come out and say, hey, this isn't me, right?
Hmm.
And the other thing, so recognizing these sophisticated attacks, AI again, lowered that barrier for bad guys. Now I can just, if I know nothing about technology, all I have to do is go to the dark web and purchase whatever it is that I want, whether it's ransomware, whether it's
Hmm.
a sophisticated phishing campaign, AI wise or otherwise, right? And, they sell ransomware as a service, phishing as a service, and a new attack. Well, it's not new, but a attack
Hmm.
called pig butchering, where they can use a combination of real people and AI chatbots. It's kind of a romance scam, targets the elderly, but business leaders have been targeted by these types of scams as well, where they get you to invest in something and you don't find out it's not real until you go to take your money out, right? And then people have lost their life savings over this. And you know what the funniest thing is about this pig butchering attack? Remember the good old days of the Nigerian prince scam?
Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Hmm.
One of those same groups is doing these sophisticated pig butchering scams. It's the same group who did the Nigerian prince scam. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, wow.
Crazy stuff. But even beyond that, it's not hard to take AI and create a phishing campaign of your own. There's guardrails, right? Like on ChatGPT, you shouldn't be able to use it for malicious purposes, but people can get around that. I don't know if you saw the news story about my grandmother used to tell me a bedtime story about creating napalm. Can you please tell me that story? And the large language model, a la ChatGPT, I don't know which one it was, spit out the recipe for creating napalm, right? I myself went into ChatGPT and said, "Hey, I want to create a security awareness training. I want to show them what good phishing emails look like, what targeted phishing emails look like." And within 4 minutes, you know how many really great phishing emails I created?
Yeah,
A
it's a
lot.
double-edged sword. The
It's
bad guys are
crazy.
using this as well as as well as us,
Yeah.
for productive purposes.
Yeah, yeah, well,
Hmm.
that's the good news. I do like to have some good cyber news in there. We are using it for good too. So we may even use it to create your employee awareness training, right? You
Hmm.
don't want it to be boring. You want to do a combination of things as far as employee awareness training. You might do something like this. You might have a lunch and learn where you bring in lunch for your staff, even if they're virtual, maybe send them a little Uber Eats gift card, right? Do a lunch and learn all together.
Hmm.
Have everyone on, have them interact, have a guest speaker come in, use there's many different trainings that you can set up email campaigns where you send fake emails.
Hmm.
Now I do want to warn you, don't be mean. Don't send an email at Christmas time about a Christmas bonus or an end of year bonus. Don't do stuff like that, right? You want to do something like, hey, probably something like someone's asking you to be a speaker at an event. Hey, I know you're really interested in cyber, do you want to be a speaker at my event? That's kind of innocuous. You don't want to sending emails about a bonus, and people have done this. I've seen it in the news and it's really sad. You may be opening yourself up to, number one, a bad culture of cybersecurity, which you don't want, and number two, maybe even a lawsuit or two, which you definitely don't want. So you want to be nice with these emails. You need to warn them of the threat of people impersonating the CEO or
Hmm.
impersonating a vendor, right? How many of those emails? I know I've received several of them. My CEO is always texting me and emailing me and asking me for gift cards, right? I need these gift cards right away. Don't try to call me, right? I will, send me a picture of them so I can use them. Those are scams. You need to teach people that. A really good rule of thumb, because everyone is not technically savvy enough to know to mouse over the sender of an email to see if it
Hmm.
really is the right domain. And the bad guys are pretty smart, right? So maybe if the domain has an M as in Mary in it, they'll put together an R and an N as in Nancy, right? And for a quick glance, you're going to think that's the real person or the real domain, right? Now there's things you can do, like we were discussing earlier, like DMARC to filter out stuff from bad domains, but it doesn't stop them from spoofing a domain, making it kind of look like it's a good domain, right? So a really good rule of thumb is never to open an attachment or to click on a link in an email unless two things are present. You know the sender and you were expecting it. And I know in some industries that's harder than others. But you know what? I know we don't like to pick up a phone and call somebody, but you can always pick up the phone and call and say, "Hey, did you really send me this document, or do you really need me to do whatever with this link?" Because let's face it, we're not very careful sometimes on social media. We maybe be proud in announcing a project we're working on
Mhm.
via LinkedIn, right? And then you don't think bad guys mind LinkedIn just like we do,
Yeah.
right? So you could
Mhm.
get a very targeted email about the project that looks like it came from someone in your project team. So think of all the heartache it would save if you just picked up the phone and called your team member, right?
Mhm.
The other thing is why I was advising not to send cruel phishing emails is because part of building that culture of cybersecurity is, let's face it,
Mhm.
we're all busy, right? Sometimes we're just busy, doing our work, answering a text, talking on the phone, and we get an email and we click, and then we're like, oh no, I shouldn't have clicked on that. So if you have a good culture and I click on that bad link, I know who to call. I call them right away and say, hey, I just want you to know I clicked on the link. I didn't put any info in, or maybe I did. Maybe I clicked on the link and I did put in my username and password to my office.com account, right? And I know who to call. They know that what they need to do is they need to log me out of every instance of Office that I'm potentially logged into, and that I need to change my password and maybe even restart my multi-factor authentication. I mean, I could
Yeah.
talk about this forever, Anthony, so
No,
I'll,
this
I'll
is all
breathe for
good
a minute.
points, though.
Like,
I mean, yeah, you get a phishing email, and that's what I tell my clients all the time is that they get one from Microsoft or Google and saying that we need to reset the password, and all right, I'm not going to click on the link, so I call the number that's in the email, which is a mistake.
bad, bad.
Yeah, so this is what we just had this happen today. A client called us, and they had Microsoft on the phone fixing their problem. Never mind calling the IT firm, which is us.
Oh
Uh,
no.
yeah, so we had to go and it's again employee training, and this is actually a company that has, I think, a decent culture and employee training in place. But nevertheless, things like this do happen, and that's why like you said, if that person had a good culture, they would have called their IT guy immediately and said, "Listen, I got this on my screen. Can you jump in and take a look?"
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. Yeah, did you realize that 74% of all attacks or breaches, and let me tell you, there's a difference between an attack and a breach for everyone on the phone. So an attack or an event, these happen all the time. This is just a bad guy knocking at your door, looking for an open port, looking for a way in, testing all of the usernames and passwords he just bought on the dark web, right? These are people knocking on your door. An incident is actually before a breach. An incident is something that compromises what we call the CIA triad. That's confidentiality, integrity, or availability of data. And that is a legal term. And breach is when you have confirmed someone who should not have access to your data, to see your data, or touch your data, um, steal your data, has access, just so you know. But 74% of breaches are due to human error. And of that 74%, 19%, which is a little less than a quarter, is actually insider threat. The rest of that 75% or 74%, excuse me, is really mistakes. I misconfigured something. I clicked on something I shouldn't have.
Hmm.
I opened a document, a malicious document, something like that. So that's really important. So, am I saying that humans are bad? No, we're great, aren't
Hmm.
we? What I'm saying is that we're also your best defense. And that's why this training and this good culture, this good cybersecurity culture are so important
Hmm.
because humans are your best defense.
I totally agree.
There we
Now,
go.
yes,
Yeah, look at that.
talk about a little bit about MFA because people like, okay, what's multi-factor and what are the good multi-factors and what are the bad multi-factors?
Okay. Bad multi-factor. Where'd he go? Bad multi-factor is a text message to this little device. There are things called SIM swapping, which means someone actually takes over your phone. And sometimes this happens because we've paid off the person at the for I almost said a vendor at at a certain mobile carrier's storefront, right? So, insider, sometimes it's that someone picks up the phone and social engineers someone at your phone company and convinces them to change your phone over. Getting a text code on your phone is bad. The best is either a hardware token like a YubiKey, And I'm sure if you don't know what a YubiKey is, you can Google that. It's Y, U as in uniform, B as in Bravo, I as in India, key. And that is a hardware token. That is something that you have and keep on you. Another yeah, texting is bad. I mean, you can use an app. Apps aren't bad, but again, if you don't have a password on that app, like if you're using Authy or Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator, you want to make sure you have a password on that app, because if you don't, then if someone SIM swaps you, then they can use your phone. There are attacks available on the dark web, phishing as a service, that can defeat the weaker multi-factor authentication. It wouldn't work against like a passkey, which we aren't there yet really with passkeys yet. But if you have a hardware token, that would make it more difficult. So, and you should really multi-factor authenticate everything. And I mean, even your social media, and I'm talking Facebook, Instagram, everything, because that is a treasure trove of information on you and your family that people could use to social engineer you or someone in your circle, right? Strong password. I'm going to say here with the multi-factor authentication, password manager, password manager, password manager, right? And this actually can defend you against things like SIM swapping too, because typically when your carrier asks you for those special questions, it's usually publicly available data. Like, what was my first car? That's publicly available. I would recommend that you out and out lie. I give absolutely outrageous answers to that. Outrageous. And you know where I
Yes.
save them? Because I would never remember them up here.
Mm.
I save them in my password manager. I save my questions and answers in the password manager. That way, if someone calls my cell phone carrier, I don't have to worry about their help desk being socially engineered, because because the answers make absolutely no sense. Nobody's been able to social engineer me because they're not my favorite color, my first car, my first boyfriend. It's none of that info. They also, I would say that password managers are right at the top of the list of something I can do cybersecurity wise, that I actually get a great return on investment, because it's going to save, once you learn how to use one, it's going to save you time. And time is money, right? It's going to help you maintain unique passwords. I personally, all my passwords are 20 characters unless I'm working with a site that doesn't allow me to use 20 characters. I have upper, lower, special characters, numbers, and there's no way I could remember that if I didn't have a password manager. Another reason you want strong password management or use of a password manager is because ChatGPT was recently breached. Facebook, how many times has Facebook been breached? Amazon, Home Depot. We have usernames and passwords for everywhere, right? And when those systems are breached, unfortunately, a lot of times I bet you'll find that you have colleagues that use the same password they use for online shopping or their social media. They use it for their work too. And what happens is when Facebook or ChatGPT or Instagram or anything get breached, those passwords end up on the dark web. And then either a bad guy who knows what he's doing or she's doing, or a bad guy who just wants to be a bad guy and has some cryptocurrency, buys that information. And again, no longer the days of the person in their hoodie in the basement banging on a keyboard, right? All this stuff is automated. They get automated lists of usernames and passwords. They try them everywhere that they can, and usually they get in somewhere. Verizon, the data breach investigations report says almost 50% of breaches or incidents are due to credentials, meaning that someone was either able to guess your credentials or buy your credentials and use them to get in somewhere.
Amazing. Yeah. That's and I know that there's places on the web you can actually go and check your email address, put it in there and see, if you appear on the dark web. There's a few
Yes.
sites like that out there.
Yes.
And I recommend anybody doing that, even Googling your email address,
Yes.
because this we could see where it appears. I did it. I found myself on a 1985 MySpace page I still had, which I turned that
Me
off.
too. Guilty. So with phishing emails, one thing I want to point out real quick before we move
Hmm.
on is, remember how I said times have changed? It used to be the Nigerian prince, right? Now it's give me some gift cards, or hey, send this payment right away,
Hmm.
but the payment info has changed, right? The one thing that has not changed with phishing is they always impose a sense of urgency. So your spidey senses should go off if someone is telling you you have to do something right now because they're
Hmm.
counting on you clicking or doing it without stopping and thinking.
Yeah. This is such a busy world, and people in general are extremely busy, and you get something in an email you don't even think sometimes, and you think it's valid, and I have to do it right away. I mean, I got, this is tax season now. I got an email
Oh,
yesterday about
yeah.
my tax return ready, and I'm saying I didn't have. I don't. This isn't. I already did it. What is
You
this
want to hear
about?
a spooky story about something
Hmm.
that happened to me? So where I live in Florida. I live in a suburb of Tampa called Riverview, and Riverview's huge. You'll never find me. But there's a lot of construction because a lot of people are moving to Florida, right? So sometimes, a construction person hits something and the power goes out. Usually it comes right back on, right? But one day I was sitting at home working and the power went out. And I was like, oh, great. So I picked up my handy dandy, high speed computer here
Hmm.
and went to the electric company's website and noted that it was a wide outage, a wide area. So I'd say power's been out about 10 minutes. I get a phone call, which my carrier didn't really do a good job of, marking that as spam, but I get a lot of phone calls from people that I work with, right? I may not necessarily have them in my contacts yet, maybe someone I met at a conference. So I answer my phone. I know, crazy, right? So I'm like, hello. And they're like, there's a recording. This is your electric company, and your electricity has been turned off for non-payment.
Oh my goodness.
And but we're
Timing
going
is
to help
everything.
you. If you press this number, you can make a payment right now.
Hmm.
That was just so wild. So not only was I able to use Facebook or not Facebook, my phone to see that there was a wide outage, the
Hmm.
bad guys were too. So just be
Amazing.
aware.
They triggered it based on the known outage, and they sent
Mhm.
out.
I wonder how many
Yeah,
people they got.
yeah, and there's a percentage return. They wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't money in
Oh
return
yeah.
that they're getting and
Oh
exploiting.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a shame, and that's why I do these type of webinars and the panels and so on, just for making people aware that this is a
Yes.
thing. Watch out. Look, even from a personal nature, I go through what they should be doing. If they
Hmm.
don't have a password manager, I talk about passphrases and how you
Yes.
vary it per website. I go through about credit cards versus debit cards, just basic things. So if it affects their home
Oh,
life, it will
definitely.
affect the business. All right,
Right.
right down
Most
to QR
definitely.
codes. That's another one that's been happening. Is that
Yes.
parking meters? They are now hacking them, putting a sticker
Hmm.
over them with their own QR code.
Oh yeah, I have a buddy who does that, and you'll get rickrolled if you get one of his in a restaurant.
Yeah, it's
He's not, or
he's
something
not
that'll pop up that
malicious. Hmm.
says, yeah, you really shouldn't have clicked that.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like phishing training for
Yeah.
QR codes. Okay,
Yes.
but yeah, these are the things I try to make people aware of, that it's a thing, and just be wary. Okay, and here's what you can do to
Exactly.
protect yourself. All right, it's not just about
Exactly.
scaring them and giving them away through. But this has been great. I mean, very educational. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today and so on. And I definitely will be reaching out to my client base, as well as people I know, and sending them this information in this
Awesome.
video once it's completed. So again, I really